Hello, welcome to the FanDuel Punch Out. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Spencer Limbach at Spencer_JL. And we're talking about tonight's slate, second slate of the day, actually. An earlier slate already happened. But we've got 8 games on tap and interesting pitching options. Once again, nobody that really seems like a slam dunk option. We've got some really good pitchers, but not a lot of guys in great situations. Interestingly enough, the lowest total on the day is in Arizona. Matchup with Jose Fernandez against Robbie Ray. Only a 7-run total there. We know Jose Fernandez literally unbeatable at home. Not so much on the road. He's definitely got an Achilles heel, and that is pitching away from his friendly confines at home. And this is a tough Arizona team, but you got to think, though, of all these pitchers, Fernandez still has the highest upside. So while he's not a must-play in cash, he's definitely a guy you're considering.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what it comes down to, and that's what it's been the last few nights. It seems is that there's good guys up at the top that have higher upsides, but you don't feel great about them. So I would kind of play around with salaries, see what you come up with, see what bats you like, and then kind of decide pitching from there. I would expect Fernandez to have one of the higher strikeout props of the night. But I also like Lance Lynn at the White Sox. He's another guy. He profiles very similarly to Fernandez. He struggles on the road. He's great at home. The White Sox really don't have that threatening of a lineup, but at the same time, I don't know. They could give him a little bit of trouble. So it's just deciding between the two of them. Really comes down to price point, and if you need that extra $700. Fernandez is 10.3 and Lynn is 9.6. So I don't know. It's just kind of a balance between the two. I think I'm going to go with Fernandez. The preliminary lineup that I built allows me to reach up and grab him and have some pretty decent bats surrounding him. So there's a lot of well-priced bats too. So I don't think you're really stretching to get him and sacrificing much in that regard. So I think I'm going to go with Fernandez just because there is that strikeout potential more so than anyone else. But I mean, I'm not going to criticize anyone for going with Lynn. I think he's also a pretty safe play.
Yeah, definitely. That White Sox offense is pretty terrible. So take your pick with those guys. I'm with you. Either one I think is a fine option. And now looking at some GPP options, Anibal Sanchez, the guy who struggled with the long ball, now facing a Seattle team that's absolutely on fire. But he's shown some consistency over his last 8 of his last 9 starts. He's got double-digit points. He's got wins in 6 of those 7. So he's a guy you can certainly consider. I probably won't be playing him in cash games just because that's such a hot offense in Seattle, and he has been fairly volatile this season. But I think he's a good option on tonight's slate. And a little bit below him, Colin McHugh against Boston. Boston's been up and down. McHugh has had some really good starts recently. 4 of his last 6 starts, he's had at least 6 innings pitched and 13 fantasy points on FanDuel. He's shown some upside. He's got 8 Ks in 2 of those games. So while he's not necessarily a safe option, he's a guy I really like a lot in tournaments against a team that's pretty hit or miss.
Yep. My preferred GPP cheap option, or mid-range option, I should say, is Robbie Ray of Arizona. He's a lefty. He's actually been pretty good this year so far. His last start against the Giants, he went 5 innings, 8 Ks. Obviously, you want to see him pitch a little more, a little deeper into the games. But I think against this Marlins lineup that, of course, without Stanton right now, they really don't have much in terms of right-handed bats that could really, put them in a predicament. So Robbie Ray at 7.1, I think he could, maybe give you around 14 or so fantasy points. Obviously, it's going to be hard-pressed for him to get a win against Jose Fernandez, but not a lot of people will be on him because of that. So, if Fernandez continues to struggle away from home, maybe gives up 3 or so runs, and Ray, goes out and does his thing like he's been doing the past few games, you could be in a really nice situation for tournaments.
Yeah, I like that call a lot, and he's cheap. And like we said, it's rare that you see such a small total in Arizona, but obviously Vegas is a believer in both these pitchers here, so I think he's a fine option as well. And looking at the cheap guys, there's really not a whole lot to like, really at all. Most of these guys are guys that you want to go out of your way to pick on, but I'm not even gonna do it. No
John
cheap
Danks?
guys.
You don't want John Danks tonight?
No, I will
Okay.
never play John Danks.
Neither will I.
I mean, he has his moments where he's good, but I, for the life of me, would never ever find him on one of those days. So, not a chance. I'm taking a flyer on John Danks against the Royals. I didn't play Garrett Cole against the Royals, so we know there's no way I'm playing John Danks against him.
Yeah.
All right, catcher options. Looks like the top two guys are the top two guys you're going to want for the most part. Brian McCann at home at Yankee Stadium against below average righty and Kevin Gausman. You got to like that. We know left-handed power plays great in Yankee Stadium. His price actually down a little bit from what it's been recently. You got to like that. Then also Victor Martinez against the lefty Mike Montgomery, who's actually been pretty good. But as we know, Martinez, when healthy, one of the best hitters in all of baseball at any position against left-handed pitching. So if you're paying up, those are the two guys you're looking at. And then my favorite tournament option below that, Josh Fegley, $3,000 once again against the lefty. Guy is absolutely crushing lefties. I believe he has like a 260 WOBA against lefties. So he's a guy that I love playing in tournaments, even in that big ballpark in Oakland.
Yeah, he's definitely a boomer bust proposition. He'll either hit a home run or go 0 for 4, kind of like he did last night. His last two outings against lefties, he was 2 for 3 with a homer and a double, 3 RBIs, and then last night he was 0 for 4 against Mark Burley. So, I mean, that's just what you're getting with him. So definitely a tournament option there. But my top overall guy, like you said, is Brian McCann. I really like him at Yankee Stadium against mediocre pitcher who does allow some power. So if you're paying up, he is my guy, even though I do like Martinez as well. Just would rather go with McCann. Otherwise, my strategy is if I'm not paying up for McCann, I'm going to go really cheap to near minimum salary. 2.3K is Yadier Molina against John Danks in that hitter-friendly ballpark, U.S. Cellular Field. He has 5 hits in the past 2 games, so maybe heating up a little bit. And on top of that, I don't know. It's just my train of thought that if you're not paying up for McCann at 3.4K, there really isn't anyone you like for cash games in that middle range. So it kind of makes sense to punt with Molina in a pretty good righty-lefty matchup.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And sometimes there's a lot of cheap options you feel okay about at catcher. Really, tonight not one of those nights. So I'm with you there. I think Molina the best of the cheap options, and I don't even think it's particularly close. So I'm with you there. McCann or Molina are probably the guys I'll be going with in cash games. All right. Moving on to first base here. There's a couple options I really like, of course, at top, as there always are. Mark Teixeira, $3,700. Once again, picking on Kevin Gausman. Albert Pujols is a guy who just continues to be on fire, facing off against Mike Pelfrey, who has been up and down this season, but Pujols obviously with the advantage there. Still preferred a little bit of a discount to Teixeira. Billy Butler is a guy I like against lefties, but he's getting kind of pricey at $3,200, so he's a tournament option for me there. And I know there's one guy particular under 3K that you really like that you're rolling out.
Yeah, I think Mark Reynolds is a nice pick for both cash games and tournaments. He has that righty-lefty matchup against John Danks, and if you've seen this podcast before, we kind of like to pick on John Danks. So I don't think that's a bad strategy at all tonight in this shorter evening slate, shorter than usual, I should say. Mark Reynolds, 2.7K, probably batting cleanup or fifth. I'm actually not sure where he hit yesterday against the lefty with Holiday back. I think he was still cleanup, wasn't he?
I think so.
Okay. So, I mean, either way, I think he's a nice pick there. I'm kind of sad that he hit a home run last night because his ownership percentage will probably spike because of that. People chasing that in another good matchup. But I think he's still a solid pick. And you can kind of just bite the bullet there and go with him at 2.7K.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And then really no cheap guys that you feel any sort of confidence in down there that are even really going to be in the lineup. You get Ike Davis against the lefty. That's a no thanks. You get Adam LaRoche against Lance, and I guess he's an okay tournament option, but he's just been really bad over the past couple weeks. So for me, I'm not really going any deeper than Mark Reynolds at first base tonight.
Yeah, and then a couple swerves off of Reynolds because I think he is going to be a popular pick, like I said. Eric Hosmer and Kendrys Morales against Pittsburgh tonight at home. I don't mind either of those guys in the event that Reynolds just doesn't live up to what he's supposed to do tonight. I think either of those guys could give you solid contributions. Obviously, less upside, so there is the risk, but just a couple swerve options there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then second base options, there's a couple guys that we really like here. Brian Dozier, of course, against the lefty. C.J. Wilson, who's actually pitched pretty well recently, but once again, you want to target Minnesota bats against lefties, even away from home, because that's where they get paid. They beat up on lefties. And then Robinson Cano, as you know, on fire. Tough matchup against Anibal Sanchez, but he's done well against equal or better pitchers recently, so you got to like Cano once again. And then I know you've got another option around there as well.
Yeah, did you say Ian Kinsler?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, that's who you left for me.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, all right, thanks for that. Yeah, I think Ian Kinsler's a great cash game play, great for tournaments. He's likely going to be popular today. Decent salary, 3.5K against Montgomery, righty-lefty matchup. You have to like a lot of Tigers tonight against Montgomery. After he had those 2 games, Montgomery, that is, like complete game shutouts,
Yep.
He's been actually pretty bad lately. He's been someone to target against, and against Detroit on the road, at Comerica really doesn't set up well for him for a bounce-back outing. So I like Ian Kinsler. I think he's one of the better, mid-range plays. I want to try and get Dozier. Obviously, I don't think that's really much of a surprise. But, my train of thought is that I don't feel bad at sitting back on Kinsler if, that 400 make or breaks, who I can grab, who I can't grab at other positions that I like. So I think Kinsler is a nice, safe play today. Obviously, Cano would be the swerve off of him. I think that's a great tournament strategy because he's going to have a lower ownership percentage. And Anibal Sanchez, he's been good. He's a quality pitcher, but, he's had his moments this season where he's given up power. So, and as we've seen, Cano is on a power surge right now. So that kind of lines up well. Love Cano as a tournament pick.
Yeah, with you there. And one other cheap guy that I'm a fan of, if for some reason you can't afford any of those guys, Ben Zobrist at home against Felix Doubront, switch hitter. He's just a solid hitter. He doesn't have a ton of upside, but he's a great cash game play, especially under 3K.
Yep.
All right, third base options. Manny Machado is one of the best in all of baseball in righty-righty matchups. Ivan Nova has been efficient, but he's giving up a lot of contact, which fares very well for Manny Machado tonight. He's expensive, though, so it's going to be tough to fit him. Trevor Plouffe, of course, against the lefty, $3,100. You're considering him as well. A guy that I don't expect to be in the lineup, but keep your eye on it just in case, Miguel Sano at $2,600. They'll probably be taking it easy with him still, but if he's in the lineup, I really like him. And then, of course, Kyle Seager once again. Another guy, along with Robinson Cano, that's heating up for that Seattle offense.
Yeah, my best per dollar pick of the night is Mike Moustakas against Charlie Morton. He's sitting at 2.6K. I think he's a great pick in that price range. A guy you just feel good about in this type of matchup. He's batting second for Kansas City, so I think he's one of the better per dollar picks. Manny Machado, obviously, the top overall play. Like you said, pretty expensive. I don't think he's necessarily worth the reach in cash games. Obviously, for tournaments, you want to get some exposure when building multiple lineups. But it's Moustakas for me, and if you're looking to pivot for a tournament at a cheaper guy, I think Chase Headley, kind of looks pretty well tonight against Kevin Gausman, as we said. Yankee Stadium. Kind of a iffy pitcher, could give up some power upside. So I think Chase Headley profiles well in that regard.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think he does as well. But Moustakas, really great call. Charlie Morton, been very good against righties, not good against lefties. 352 WOBA allowed already this season, so that's a good call there. Shortstop, for me, it's Johnny Peralta, and it's more Johnny Peralta. He's 3,300. He's mashing left-handed pitching this year. John Danks just so happens to be the worst on tonight's slate at 382 WOBA allowed against righties. Also one of the worst in all of baseball against righties. So everything matching up well for Johnny Peralta tonight at 3,300. So he's going to be your top play. You can still consider some other guys. Carlos Correa obviously has big-time upside, even against a righty. Joe Kelly, just not a good pitcher. Gives up a lot of hard contact. Walks a ton of batters. So should be plenty of base runners on for him as well if you want to swerve off of Johnny Peralta.
Yeah, it's Johnny Peralta for me, and I think he's going to be very highly owned, but a guy you probably want in your cash games. Otherwise, you're going to be missing out. And in tournaments, too. I mean, sometimes it's just better to bite the bullet at a clear-cut top play like Johnny Peralta, especially with a nice price point. And then just be sneaky in other positions. Pick your spots that way. But if you are looking for someone else, I think Jung Ho Kong. Is that how you say it? Is it Kong?
I think so.
Okay. You're the pronunciation guy, so
Yeah,
I kind of
that's the one where I've heard Kong and I've heard Gong.
yeah.
So
See, that's what I was thinking in the back of my mind as I said it. But well, okay, you know who I'm talking about. That
yeah,
Pittsburgh
Jung Ho.
shortstop. Yeah, I think he's in an okay spot. He, he's just been crushing the ball lately. If you look at all these multiple hit games, he has 3 straight extra base hits. And over the past 2 weeks, he actually ranks 4th in the league in total WOBA. So this is a guy who's really heating up, and that could continue tonight against Volquez. So, I mean, if Peralta, kind of like we said before, if he doesn't, do what he's expected, I think Jung Ho Kong is, next in line to, maybe outproduce him. So 2.9K, I think he's a sneaky tournament pick.
Yeah, and I like Xander Bogaerts as well. He, as you know, we all know he's just been hitting the ball well. Not a guy with a ton of upside, but multi-hits in 5 of his last 6, couple doubles in that span. He's a guy that's just consistent. You're never going to get huge games out of him, but you're getting 2 to 4 fantasy points most nights out of him. All right, outfield options. Mike Trout still nursing that, I believe it's a heel injury, they said. He's expected to be in the lineup tonight. Of course, if he's in the lineup, he's going to be your top option, as he always is. A couple guys that you pointed out, especially one guy really much, much cheaper than we think he should be. Jacoby Ellsbury is $3,800 against Kevin Gausman. Already mentioned targeting Gausman with these lefty bats already. His price just way too cheap for his upside. A couple other guys, of course, JD Martinez with the big power upside against Mike Montgomery, who you just mentioned you want to pick on. And those are most of the top options here. I'm not really paying up for guys like Joey Bats, Jose Bautista. Andrew McCutchen gets Edison Volquez, who's been okay. He's a fine option at $4,800, but more of a tournament guy for me.
Yeah. I don't think you have to go that way for, that price point. You'll probably want to get up to Trout or maybe, dip down a little bit. I think JD Martinez is the expensive guy. If I'm reaching up that far, I'm going to go with him. Obviously, don't have to. I think there's some quality mid-range picks. As you said, I think Ellsbury is a building block for cash games. Just too cheap, regarding that matchup at home. Speed power combination. You just got to love it for 3.8K. I think that's an easy pick. Otherwise, I mean, I know I said JD Martinez. If you want to get the cheaper version of him, but less reliable version, Yoenis Cespedes is only 3.2K. So if you want to get some exposure to that righty-lefty matchup against Montgomery with some power upside, I think Cespedes is a nice risk-reward pick for a non-prohibitive price point. Otherwise, Matt Holliday at 3.1, I think he makes for a better cash game option. Obviously, hit that grand slam tonight. You don't expect a repeat performance tonight necessarily. But righty-lefty against John Danks, and it's actually nice to see that he did something last night, to kind of prove himself as at least somewhat healthy and capable of going up there, and he doesn't have rust on him still. So I think you can feel confident in him. 3.1K, and then a couple cheap picks that I really like tonight. Raja Davis should be leading off for Detroit against a lefty in Montgomery, like we said. So he's only 2.3K. I think that's a nice, bare minimum pick, even though he really hasn't done much lately. You can't really hold it against him because he had that one bad outing, 0 for 4 when he let off last time, but then he's just been a pinch hitter. So, I mean, I don't know how you factor in that game log. It doesn't look great on the surface, but I don't think it's, a traditional game log where you can really hold it against him and say he's in a cold spell. So, otherwise, if you want to get away from Davis, I think Gregory Polanco is your next best cheap outfielder. He's 2.4K. He's been hitting the ball pretty decent lately. 3 doubles in the past 4 games, so you got to like that. Some run scoring potential here leading off for Pittsburgh. And it always helps to have guys like, McCutchen and Marte behind you as well. So 2.4K, I think he's a nice pick as well.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'll throw another tournament option. Randall Grichuk is $3,800, more than you obviously pay in a cash game, but these guys have been hitting well. Another righty you can target John Danks with. Mookie Betts is a guy that's been struggling over about the past week or so, but he's a guy with some big-time upside as well. in his matchup tonight, $3,500. And then a fairly cheap option I like, Austin Jackson, if he's batting near the top of the order, $2,500. His last 2 games, he's 4 for 10. Got an RBI, a couple runs scored, 3 stolen bases. So he's a guy that's got some upside, a decent floor as well there. And outside of that, if he's in the lineup here tonight, Carlos Beltran at $2,800, I think is an interesting option as well.
Yeah, I'm going to throw out one more tournament pick. It's a guy who always seems to slip through the cracks, is Starling Marte. He's been really good as of late. 5 hits. He's 5 for 9 in the past 2 games in this series with Kansas City. Stole a base in both of those games. So you got to love the power, speed, contact, all that combination. He's just a very reliable player who does have upside. So 3.7K if you're, kind of looking to get away from Ellsbury, or, maybe combine him with Ellsbury and take someone cheaper in another spot. I think he's a nice pick.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And, I think that's about it for me. All right, that'll wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.